Hey, this is Matthew Dean with the Musician Network, still here at South by Southwest. I'm here with PHONOGRAPH. Why don't you guys each introduce yourself and say what you do for the band?
I'm Dave Burnett, I play drums.
I'm Matt, I sing and play guitar.
My name is John, I play bass and some keyboards and sing.
These guys have sort of a basis in folk and sort of roots rock, but they kind of let anything go in their songs and in their recordings. Now, why don't you guys give me talk about your influences a little bit, and then stemming from that, sort of your goal musically in creating music and what you're trying to go for.
I think a lot of what we do is we try to use all our influences and make something that's going to come out that's kind of fresh. A lot of what I listen to ranges all the way from Johnny Cash to spiritualized, and I'm a big Happy Mondays fan. It's like it could be anything. John used to play with Jojo Mayer and Nerve, so it's like drum and bass, and Dave played with Jen Chapin, and also has a band called the Dang It Bobbies, which is also straight up country. So it's there's a lot of kind of fusion of influences, and hopefully our goal is to make people kind of scratch their head at what we are. And hopefully it comes off good, So
I think also the way that Matt writes songs is he writes just great songs that at the core you could kind of sit there and play them with his acoustic guitar by himself if he had to.
Yeah.
But when we put the band together and have all the different influences that the bandmates have, it kind of comes out a little different then.
It becomes a whole different animal.
Yeah.
So I guess that does prove then it is sort of at its basis folk music in the end, because it can be done with an acoustic guitar and voice.
I think that's what people relate to a lot, is that they hear that in the music, but then there's also all this other crazy stuff going on that they also like, gets their attention.
Yeah, it keeps
what's
it
cool
going.
too is for the new record that's coming out, John wrote some tunes, and Abe, our guitar player, who comes from a heavily experimental jazz background, wrote some tunes as well, and so to fuse that with what I was writing, it's fun, there'll be a country crooner, and then there'll be a song in 6 or 3,
some wild stuff.
and just make stuff, and then all of a sudden bring it right back into an acoustic song again.
Yeah.
So it all works out in the end,
Now, we were talking earlier, and you mentioned that you have a lot of interesting sounds, obviously being sort of experimental. What are some kind of cool instruments and sound effects and different signal flows that you guys are using in the studio and live to capture interesting sounds?
This is an hour show, right? Is that what's going on?
We got plenty of time.
2 hour special. I would say, instrument-wise, everyone has a pretty, a rig that's designed to sort of do as much interesting noise stuff as possible. I mean, from Matt is a Moog analog delay with an expression pedal, so he can do feedback, pitch modulation with his foot, and crazy fuzz pedals, and Abe has just a ton of really strange pedals, and he's this bitter man, and all sorts of just random synth things. I have an Octave Cat synth from the late 70s, which I always have.
It's a classic.
When I can take it. I didn't bring it here because it's fragile, and we have an Optagon at the studio, which is
cool.
I don't know if you've checked one of those out.
Man, the name sounds familiar. I don't think I've actually used one. What does it do?
It's kind of like a really budge mellotron that was made by Mattel in the 70s that uses these clear plastic discs, and it reads it with an optical thing, and it's actual samples of strings or
so there are,
horns.
you know what, now that the way you describe it, I think I have heard one of those.
If you hear the Sparkle Horse record, It's a Wonderful Life, the first song is the waltz guitar and 3/4 disc being played, all the guitar and drums are from that.
Yeah.
So it's you've heard it a lot, but it's
it's in a lot of recordings.
We have a Help and Still electric console piano, and just a ton of weird weird stuff.
Now, you mentioned in the studio, you actually have a studio yourself, that's correct?
I run a studio in Brooklyn.
In Phonograph's recordings, do you do any of the engineering?
Yeah, me and my partner do all the engineering.
Okay, so are you part of
we all sort of split the tape opping and stuff, you know, whoever's overdubbing, you know, someone else will hit record, and, you know, so we all have enough knowledge of how to work in the studio.
You mentioned tape, are you actually recording to tape?
Yeah, we have a Studio A80, and we did all the basics on the first record were tracked to that. We didn't have enough money to buy enough reels, so we had to dump it into the computer and do all the overdubs there. But
they're expensive now, man.
The new record is about half and half so far.
It's kind of cool to have at least some of that.
All tape and
go down to it to mix afterwards.
It's really just how many tracks we need. You know, we never really do any editing, but as soon as we want to start adding like another stereo room mic or something, and then all of a sudden it's like there's 2 tracks left. You need to have vocals and 4 guitar parts, and it's like
with the triple piano.
All right, put it in Logic, you know.
Exactly.
So.